All right, so we all know the name Elvis Presley,
Mm-hmm.
the king.
Yeah, the king of rock and roll.
But today, we're shifting gears a little.
Mm-hmm.
Going to put the spotlight on the man behind the icon, his father.
Vernon Presley.
Vernon Presley, exactly. Born April 10th, 1916, died June 26, 1979. And, it's really easy to just think about him as Elvis's dad.
Right.
But today, in this deep dive, we're really going to try to uncover Vernon's own story. I mean, he led a pretty interesting life himself, and his impact on Elvis was pretty huge.
Absolutely.
And we've got some great biographical information, timelines, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and I think what's really fascinating is that if you look at the very beginning, like the bedrock of the Presley family, their early life in Fulton, Mississippi, and then that move to Tupelo,
Right.
it speaks volumes about the resilience.
Yeah.
Vernon, his brother Vester, and their father, they actually built their own house, a two-room house with their own hands. And so you see that resourcefulness right there. And it's obvious how important family was. And you can't talk about the Presleys without talking about religion and gospel music. I mean, that was a foundation for Elvis's music.
Totally. It really set the stage.
Mm.
And speaking of family, at the center of it all was Gladys Love Smith. She was born in 1912, so a few years older than Vernon.
Right.
And they eloped, which is kind of romantic in a way.
Mm.
In 1933, they even, tweaked their ages a bit on the marriage license,
Oh, interesting.
which shows you something about the times, I guess, those societal norms about age differences and all that.
Yeah, fascinating.
But yeah, their early years were tough, real hardship. Vernon working all sorts of odd jobs to keep things afloat.
And that context, I think is so important because then we fast forward to this incredibly pivotal moment in their lives, January 8th, 1935.
Twins.
The twins, Jesse Garon, who sadly didn't survive, and then Elvis Aaron.
It's hard to imagine the impact of that, the loss and the joy all at once.
Absolutely, and I think it really shaped the family dynamic. And it's no secret that Elvis became the center of their world.
Absolutely. Elvis had that famously close bond with Gladys, his baby. But his relationship with Vernon, it's described differently depending on who you ask.
Right.
Some folks suggest that Gladys and Elvis really called the shots in the family.
Interesting.
But in 1948, the family moved to Memphis, hoping for a better life, better opportunities. And before Elvis hit it big, Vernon's work life was all over the place. He was a farmhand with his brother, working on cotton, corn, hogs, all kinds of stuff. He was a delivery driver, even worked at a paint factory for a bit.
Wow, quite a journey. Talk about adaptable.
Yeah, talk about a contrast, right? I mean, who could have predicted what was coming next? And then boom, Elvis's career explodes. And all of a sudden, Vernon goes from manual labor to managing his son's affairs. He sets up an office at Graceland, handles the money, even signs Elvis's first contract with Sun Records when Elvis was just 20.
That's incredible.
He even popped up in a few of Elvis's movies, uncredited, of course. I mean, that just shows the level of trust and involvement Vernon had.
Absolutely. He was a trusted advisor, worked closely with Colonel Tom Parker, and Elvis actually insisted that all the bills be sent directly to Vernon.
Which is interesting because there are different opinions out there about Vernon's financial savvy. Some fans think his past struggles with poverty maybe influenced his decisions, maybe made him a bit more cautious. But regardless, he was Elvis's rock. Always there for him emotionally, always present on tour. I mean, he lived at Graceland, right? So they were together through it all.
And then the story takes a pretty sharp turn after Elvis's death in August of 77.
Yeah, August 16th.
Vernon becomes the executor of Elvis's will, the trustee, with Minnie Mae and Lisa Marie as the beneficiaries.
Right.
But, managing an estate that massive, it presented some serious challenges for Vernon. And then that decision to rely heavily on Colonel Parker, well, it led to that controversial agreement, where Parker got 50% of the estate's income.
Yeah, it almost bankrupted the whole thing.
Almost.
And it makes you wonder.
Yeah.
Really makes you think about how things could have been handled differently.
Yeah.
After Vernon died in 79, Priscilla really stepped up and transformed Graceland into what it is today.
Right.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
And thinking back on Vernon's personal journey, you can't ignore that incident in 1938.
Right.
He got convicted for altering a check, ended up serving some time, but got out early.
I can't imagine how that must have felt.
Yeah, it must have weighed on him.
Absolutely. And we can't forget the impact of Gladys's death in 58. That was a devastating loss for Elvis. He always said she was his best girl. Vernon did remarry in 1960, a woman named Dee Stanley. but they divorced in 77, the same year Elvis died.
Oh, wow.
And some reports suggest that Elvis wasn't exactly thrilled about the marriage.
Huh. Interesting.
But yeah, even after Elvis's death, Vernon continued to manage Graceland. It was still a private residence then, but he took care of the business side of things. He even made an appearance on Hee Haw in 78 to honor Elvis.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was a touching tribute. And then in June of 79, he died of a heart attack.
Yeah.
He's buried in the meditation garden at Graceland.
You know, when you look at Vernon Presley's life, you see hardship, you see resilience, and you see a lot of love for his family.
Absolutely.
He was there for Elvis every step of the way, and his story is way more than just being Elvis's dad.
Right.
I mean, the guy adapted to whatever life threw at him, and his dedication was pretty remarkable.
And it really leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it? Like, try to see Elvis's journey through the lens of Vernon's life, his struggles, his devotion. It really gives you a whole new perspective on the king.
He really does. It makes you appreciate the humanity behind the icon.
Exactly. And I think that's the power of stories like Vernon's. They remind us that everyone, even the people behind the legends, have their own complexities and journeys.
I think that's a great place to leave it. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks for having me.